podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead Podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I would much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. Peace. In this week's episode, we are going to be reconnecting with my good brother, Divine Culture. If you've been listening to the podcast for some time, you may recall, almost about a year and a half ago, Divine appearing on the pod, and we had a brief discussion around education and a couple other matters with the intention of having additional dialogue that didn't take place. So we just made some time this week to catch up, reconnect, and see if we could add on. So please, as always, take the best part for yourself. Peace. Peace. This is the Ask Your Oldhead Podcast with Justice Rajee, and I am joined by my good brother and, the promised second return of my brother, Divine Culture. So we're just gonna get it. Divine, how you doing tonight?
Peace, Justice. I'm well, man. I'm in a good space right now, mind and body.
Man. So, just to get us going, I'm just dive right in. So I think in our first conversation, which was about 2 years ago now, I think in that conversation we discussed a little bit about your work in education and you also your experience, as I like to talk about, you as someone who's working in education, but is also working on the furtherance of your own education. So you're an educator and educating at the same time, right? And I'd love to get to maybe just start off with what are some of your thoughts about this last year in terms of the experience of education, in the conditions of the pandemic, as a professional who has taught young people and taught college level, right? As well.
Yes. I could speak on that from a couple of different perspectives as an educator, as a graduate student, and as an adjunct faculty member. It's been a very memorable year, and I think memorable may be a downstatement. COVID in relationship to education has sent an electric shock onto the people. Me being from Pittsburgh and always making Steelers references and football references, it was like a hurried snap. In the O'Donnell days. The O'Donnell days, you know what I mean? Like it was like a hurried snap when the center hurriedly snaps the ball, and then the quarterback is like juggling the ball, trying to get a pass down the field. And that's what it reminded me of. Regarding, K through 12, it was different for elementary and high school because, high school students could be a bit more responsible as it pertains to engaging and learning virtually, whereas the relationship between classroom management and elementary is a bit unique because, that age students like to be very, autonomous. So I've seen some good things. I've heard of some good things regarding K through 12 virtual learning, but with the lack of technology access in the beginning, the lack of training for teachers regarding the migration to virtual learning, as I said, it was a hurried snap. What I do think was beneficial overall was COVID showing the inequities in education And now it's kind of like everyone's like, all right, we need to rethink education. It took a pandemic for us to be like, rethink education. As much as people are talking about culturally responsive education in 2021, I've been talking about this since 2005. Being an ELA teacher, and being forced because of evaluation to teach content that was not culturally responsive or culturally sustaining to students. I've been talking about this since I've gotten into education. And the thing is, you may have an administrator who, has a empathetic ear to that topic at the time, but because the fact that these jobs are associated with people's salaries and salaries, help people live their lives, people, they look the other way, or they did look the other way. Now, with George Floyd untimely passing because he was murdered, now everybody is, raising their eyebrows about, then some things need to change. K through 12, people were saying it. Some things need to change. Higher education, people were saying it. Some things need to change, but the reality is everything that's taking place is how it was designed. I am an educator with the lens throughout the K through 12 and higher ed pipeline, which is P through 20, P through 16. 20 is, occupational attainment, what people do after they get done with college. But it's like when we look at the origin of education in America, it was never intended to empower Black and brown students anyway. And when you look at higher education, Harvard University starting in 1636, it was specifically a factory, if I may, of social capital for one particular demographic, which was white men. So echoing some of my earlier sentiments, we're in antiquated times where everyone is now, we are in a time where people are realizing that the tools we've been using are antiquated. So again, as I said, it's about people realizing things need to change. So yeah, a lot happened this year, and I think that people are now able to be reflective. But in order for things to, change, there needs to be some swift movement regarding policy, because policy is the only way in education that you may see change where people are held accountable. Sometimes when we talk about equity and being culturally responsive, there's a lot of faux responsiveness, not like the pho I would like to eat right now, PHO, but FAUX, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's a lot of faux behavior as it pertains to really wanting to be diverse. And that's because it's still fairly new, it's still fairly new that higher education administrators are saying, okay, we have these brochures with a few Black people on the brochure, but we know that, it's not like that when people are on these campuses in regards to representation. So there's going to be there needs to be a lot of meetings of the minds with a very diverse group of minds at these tables in order for things to really be, impactful and meaningful. So yeah, education is it's a big blur right now. It's a big blur. Willfully with Secretary Cardona, who is a, lifelong educator. I think that he is going to be someone who is going to strive to make change if that takes place.
If it takes place.
Yeah.
Like, what would be like an example of a policy concept that I mean, like, I guess I'll start from here with a little bit of experience in my house. So my daughter, she ended up in one form of home, like online school. She's high school age. And it was this curriculum that was sort of like, it was almost like a package curriculum where you could go in and do some of the work. And then you had like almost like a recitation kind of class with the teacher. Where so you could go like do the lesson, do the activities, and then you could like go to this other meeting and ask the teacher questions about what you did. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And presuming you did the work, you know what I mean, then they maybe could give you relevant, input on what you're doing or explain a concept. Which on its face seemed like something that would be really great for like a young person who was like kind of really like, oh, I can just go in here and do this. Like, and if they can understand it, like they can maybe just blast through the stuff they understand and then spend more time on stuff they don't understand, like in theory. But the way that played out for her was the lack of the social interaction, like, with classmates and with the teacher even.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work. It wasn't working. Like she couldn't always, and for whatever reason, she couldn't always bring herself to do, some of the work. Or she would do it and catch up, or, and they had all this open time to catch up, like if they forgot stuff. But it was almost like you had too much time. Like it was very interesting trying to help her. And then also, being home, but not really being home because I'm working, from home.
Yeah.
She's working from home, and everybody's in the house, but everybody's supposed to be doing something else. They're not really free. And, then later she switched to here, what we call like comprehensive school model, which is basically the school, like when school opened here, which they're just starting. She'll start going to some hybrid days and stuff. But those classes were like a live Zoom class. It was like a class and the teacher's talking and doing stuff live in real time. And then like you go, almost more like you would do in school if you was there in person, where like the teacher does some activities and you participate. And then you might break out and have to do some other work on your own.
Mm-hmm.
But it had more of the social interaction, which worked a lot better for her. Right. And so it's got me thinking about, structures that like work for some kids don't work for other kids. And I just, in my own head, I don't have any elementary age kids, but I was just trying to figure, I have no idea how any of this would work with like an 8-year-old, and like tell them like, hey, be over here by this screen, my man. I'm gonna be right back. Like so like, what would be for you, or what you've seen? Are there any concepts or things you've seen in this year, or even been asked for input on in your works, like that are like, well, maybe this piece would be something we could keep, but like this piece is clearly showing this is not enough. Like, what's some of your reflections that you've seen in that?
Yeah, I think we're still in a gray space where people need to rethink education.
Mm-hmm.
I think that some virtual learning is not going to go away. And I'm not just talking about education in different sectors. Like the whole virtual exchange is not going to go away. And I think it's actually going to be wedded with face-to-face, depending on the districts. As of today, I was told that, the COVID numbers have actually increased as of late. So who knows where we'll be in August,
right?
With the uncertainty with vaccines, Johnson & Johnson callbacks, all these different details. So I think that we're in a stage where there's going to have to be some meaningful thinking that is badged with like endless ingenuity. Like we really need some creative minds. This might even look like, leaning on minds from different sectors, you know what I mean? To like really see how we can carry on with educating America's students and countering the learning loss, because that's what's taking place this year. And it may be some glowing areas in certain parts of America, but regarding Black and Brown students that I have heard and engaged, there's been, significant learning loss this year.
So, like when we hear a lot about the concept of learning loss. Could you give people like your interpretation, like of what that means? Like, what does it mean when a student has learned it, like, has experienced learning loss? Like, what is that? Like, I don't know, in like layman's terms, so to speak.
Well, if we've had engagement pre-pandemic, Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock to 3:30, with critical thinking, reading, writing, and then to a real shabby form of that same type of engagement, where students may have then migrated to entertainment or Instagram, like that's a form of learning loss. Like there hasn't been that same type of reading and writing, especially when there's in certain communities where the reading and writing only takes place in school. Like pre-pandemic, the only reading and writing took place in school, not after hours. So those are, some examples of learning loss. But now we have these new schedules where, people have classes Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, class Friday. I think that, and you utilize this language and I embrace it, structure is going to be very important moving forward. And I think that people or school districts are going to have their own individualized ways of how this structure looks. I don't think it can be uniform because of, the diverse learning areas and spaces that we have in America.
Is anything you've seen in this year give you any thought that something, because I've always been in a thought, at least especially in what is it, K through 12 education, that for some youth, some of our young people that, for whatever reasons are not coming from or not in an environment that they're going to get, they need more time. They need more access, to a learning experience, but not necessarily that they just need to be in the classroom longer, but they need that like after school experience, and they need.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. Like, is there any, and that sometimes maybe if they started at 10 a.m. and went a little later instead of starting at 9 or 8 or 7:45, whatever, with some school, like they could have a better outcome, right?
Yeah,
but the structuring of schools where it's like, well, but if we got 30 kids that go to school from 10 to 5 o'clock, who's going to staff that? What teacher gets that deal? How we move the administrator? It becomes all this stuff that's about adults and not the kids necessarily. Has anything, or do you have any thoughts around like the fact that, like, as a lot of people have lamented, like the idea of the snow day is probably gone, right? Like, the snow days, we knew it, where it's like, oh man, it's snow day, you can't go to school, dog. You know what I mean? We was going to be home. And it's like, nah, man, crack that computer open.
Yeah.
Like we about to have school, right?
Yeah.
But, and that would be, and a lot of people would experience that as a loss, right? Because they remember like the kind of the joy of the snow day where you're like, oh man, I thought I was going to school today, but now I'm about to be outside playing, right? If you were fortunate enough to do so. But is there something in there where maybe points to like, well, look, we got all these tools. We've got people moving around. Maybe we can embrace some, alternative schedules and some like redesigning the way people move in buildings and stuff and using these tools. Do you think is there any space for that? Is anything in your experience seen where people might actually be open to these ideas now?
Is there space for that? Yes. Are people open to these ideas? I would say no, or a better answer would be I expect predicted pushback. Because there's politics involved, but the reality is a student can go into class one-on-one and get introduced to a subject for 2 hours or 3 hours a day. And then that instruction face-to-face can be followed with content or complementary instruction by way of YouTube or Khan Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, that content can be then complemented with some type of instruction with by way of university partnerships. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different, and I'm just saying that off of the top of the head. There's so many different ways that we can if I can say, braid the experience.
Okay.
Students need, like I said before, there's the face-to-face, then there's the instruction by way of technology, and then there's the instruction leaning on the expertise in higher education, and just like braiding 3 plaits, like that could be, an option. There's so many, but that can be an option in regards of finding a creative means of structure for post-pandemic education.
Mm-hmm.
So there are so many great minds that I'm just coming across by way of Twitter. That's my only social media. But in the event that there could be a table, 4 legs, I don't know how long, you know what I'm saying? But there's a table where you can get some of these great thinkers together with public school administrators and parents and community members. I am certain that we as people have enough willpower to bring something into existence that will meet the needs of our students, with the following topics being very pronounced right now: race relations,
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19, and technology. So that's a unique intersection that we are at right now, and it can't be ignored. We cannot talk about race and race relations because COVID has made us aware. I mean, Black people have always been made aware, but there's certain individuals, because of class, that they may have not realized how arduous it may be to be and exist in the body of a Black man or a Black woman or a Black child.
Mm-hmm.
So now that everybody, it's almost like pandemic has allowed the Windex to be sprayed. And right now, we're using a nice brownie piece of paper towel.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear. So, and then what happened?
Right.
So, and then what happened? What are we going to do next? What type of swift action is going to follow? Because, even when I'm out, man, I can just tell, like, there's a certain energy in the atmosphere. Like, people may be like, I'm experiencing a whole different type of kind, in DC. Yeah, like whether I'm running, people who don't know the Black experience. And this is not a lot of people, but I've had some notable exchanges where it's like, there's exchanges that evoke allyship, and I think that that's very important because the privilege that people possess can be used as an anchor for a greater quality of life or greater quality of education for Black and brown people across America and other marginalized communities, in addition to white poor communities that do exist.
Yeah. Well, I think it's I think this is the type of event. Obviously on some things some things are gonna change slower than others. Some people have already if you were comfortable calling this moment a racial reckoning, some folks have already made it clear like they're not really here for the racial reckoning. You know what I'm saying? And I think and then other people, it'll be interesting to see, as we get into the summer, and at least as it relates to education and having a second summer. Cause I think for sure, like in the spring last year, it was like, I don't know what we're going to do. And it was like, like chuck it up there. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then as your analogy spoke to, then the fall, like, all right, we kind of got a plan. We're going to see if this works.
Yeah.
Now you got a whole year, a lot of places are saying, yeah, whatever the conditions are, we're going back to buildings. Is basically
that's what you're hearing. Yeah.
That's the energy. And then I would say in a broader sense, I think of all systems, like, the private job markets, everything sort of like, we are going to open up in the fall of hella high water, as one might say. So, so for some folks, it's like, they may not be at the mandated to return to a building if you were in the type of work where you could work remote and still do your job. But a lot of places are going to be like, well, yeah, we kind of don't want you to come back to the building. You know what I'm saying? And sports leagues are operating like, yeah, we're going to have fans. Next year, there's going to be people in the crowd. Hit shows, like everybody's like, everything's coming back, whatever the conditions are. And I'm just curious, how fast people, I mean, some people as I've seen, they just be out. You know what I'm saying? I know you run, so you be moving around and seeing, folks, when you're doing your sport and training. But I'm curious in how people will start coming back together. You know what I mean? Like, what will it look like? I don't think everybody's going to rush outside in the same way. Although I think people are at some point just going to cut loose and take risks because they're like, I've been in the house too much, or I've been away from my loved ones too much, or you know what I'm saying. So if I have some sense of safety, I'm gonna make some try. So, and I think within the realm of education, and I appreciate you for sharing from the perspective of an educator. I want to circle back in a moment to your own experience as a person that's working on doctorate. But before that, what has been some of your experiences with your training, with your running, you know what I'm saying, in fitness, in the outdoors in this time? Because I've had I had a couple different things happening, but I have a knee thing I've been figuring out, doing some physical therapy, getting that back. But this week, really, I really got my bike back, got out on the road. And so I'm just curious, what's been what has been your feeling? Like, how is getting on the road, running, being outside, like how's that showing up for you recently in terms of your care? Even when the last time we recorded, I think that day you had went out for a run, or the next morning.
I did. I ran in Chicago when we were there. In fact, any city I go to, I make sure I get a couple of miles in. But to answer your question, I want to lead with this. Back before the jogging thing got to be a craze during the late 60s or so, I used to go out every couple of days and run around the half-mile track at a park. In those days, and to my mind, the body was what the mind was. And so I was out of all the time flying around the track. Also, I'd take off at least once a week and go zooming around the lake itself, about 3 miles or so. It brought back my high school cross country days, the wind in your face, talking to yourself and thinking great, out of breath, slightly agonized thoughts. That was a piece from a Mary Baraka from a book of short stories called Tales of the Out and the Gone. And I embrace, I embrace all of Mary Baraka's writings, but that particular part, it kind of like encapsulates my experience with running, like in regards of there being this intimacy just with nature while running, the wind in your face, talking to yourself and thinking great. Like, it's been a lot of, it's just you out there when you run, even when you're running with a bunch of people. I run with my brother sometimes. It's still just a one-on-one thing that's taking place with you in time. So it's been rather therapeutic for me. It's been like a sense of therapy. Now, I've always ran. There's been some large gaps, especially when I was out hanging out every night. But I ran when I was younger, and the pandemic has allowed me to rethink how many times I engage throughout the week, because now I'm trying to get it in as much as possible, without so many large gaps. But running has been been an anchor for my peace. There's this exchange with my body and sweating, and this emotion of feeling accomplished after I get done with a run, that it's just been everything for me. So it has definitely just been therapeutic, and it's also been interesting to see the behaviors of others while running.
Mm-hmm.
So even today, when I was running in New York, it was interesting. I ran in New York at 6:30 in the morning, and there were not many people out at all. But I ran up running to Central Park. So me as a black man running to Central Park, I mean, I couldn't help but think about Central Park.
Right.
Yeah, and so while I'm running, I'm still engaging with this identity of me being a black man, and something could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Although that took place in the 80s, there's just like this thing. Am I running to something? Am I running from something? Or is he running to really just be in shape? So some of the responses I got a couple thumbs up today when I was running. But there's like the gaze. There's like the gaze when you're running. Like people, depending on what city you're in, it may be kind of awkward to see a black male running.
Mm-hmm.
Why there's all these different running groups coming up right now.
Yeah. So I mean, with the early morning aspect, when you run, are you building up to something, or is it just something that you're just sort of trying to maintain, right? Like, are you like, I want to run a marathon, or I want to run a half marathon, or is that in your calculus or your plans, or is it just the meditative value? Right.
Yeah, it's just been the meditative value. And then, to be honest, brother trying to watch his weight. You know what I'm saying? Like, although I've been playing bass for years upon years, I mean, I'm flirting with 20 years of being plant-based. Plant-based food is still calories. I can eat as much Beyond Meat sandwiches. It's still going to get similar calories,
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something I wanted to, it was a goal of mine to just make sure that I was fit, as I realized it was going to be kind of like this very lingering end date regarding the pandemic. And as long as, Dr. Fauci and all these other experts said it was okay to run, I said, I'm going to revisit my childhood. Like Nas would say, me revisit my childhood, my younger years, and get out here and sweat. And, it's funny. My body reminds me of like, yo, you ain't ran in a couple of days. Like my legs feel a different type of way. So it's almost like me becoming even more in tune with self and being reflective. As some people take showers and have great ideas, sometimes I have, great ideas while running.
Yeah. Well, I'm just shared this it's been over the last 4 or 5 months between work and other things. Like I've been training capoeira.
Oh, okay. That's peace.
Working. But I've been having this really for like the last 2 years. I've been having this knee pain, which I haven't had. And I'm like, damn, like what did I, trying to figure out why, like did I injure something? So I finally got an MRI because I had done therapy twice and got x-rays and they were inconclusive. And I had MRI in the fall. And so when I finally get it checked out, they're like, oh yeah, you got meniscus tear, you got, this, you got this bone on the bone, da. I'm like, I'm like, well, maybe, so my thing is I'm trying to figure out with my own body in terms of functioning. I'm already like, almost like are you hurt? Are you injured? Like, do I have something? Like, is there something actually wrong that can be fixed or adjusted? You know what I'm saying? Or is this something that I have to adjust to? I mean, I got to work my body around what's happening, you know what I mean? Meaning my diet, exercise, my, what type of training I do so that I can still be active. Cause I need the stress release, especially of like, weirdly enough, I'm not really big on running, but I like walking real far. And
I can dig it.
And I like riding the bike. I think at least for me, I've found the physics of my body. Like in the past, I've been able to work myself up to being able to, do like a 5-mile run, you know what I'm saying? And not damage anything. But I've never athletically just been able to go like, man, I'm gonna go ahead and out here jog for 7 miles. Like but I'd rather jump rope or do intervals of some kind that mimic the energy of a run, but just running. In any event, so I go get checked out, and orthopedics like, look, but your meniscus has probably been torn for like 7-8 years. I don't know like why it's hurt. Like it could be hurting now, just of like you could basically, he's like, yeah, like your one leg, this is probably actually this growth plate on this side, grew stopped faster or went, blah, blah, blah. So he's breaking it down. He's like, if you don't want any pain, the only thing you could do is like a knee replacement, which you're too young for a knee replacement. I was like, yeah, I'm not getting no knee replacement. I'm 45 years old. I'm gonna get a knee replacement. Well, I'm 45, you know what I'm saying? And so he's like, but he's like, we'll do, get you in therapy. I get it. There's a knee brace. And something also I'm not good with is like pain meds of any kind. And he's like, well, we could do a cortisone, which I've never done. I know people they get cortisone shots for stuff. I'm like, in my own Justice He-Man macho stuff is like, I don't need no pain relief. I'm just going to use my mind, you know what I'm saying? And I put a compress on it. So in any event, he gives me the shot. He's like, well, look, from a therapeutic perspective, the thing that helps with getting the cortisone is if you do physical therapy and start working on some training, you can close the negative feedback loop where you're feeling the pain, so that you can, do some training to strengthen, your glutes and do other stuff and, adjust the length of some of your ligaments, do the training, and work on stability so that basically you have some space to get the feedback loop that is healthy, because it's been killing me for like the last 2 years. I can't train even the way that I want to. So what I'm saying on that to say is I've had to step away from capoeira for a little bit, maybe for longer, we'll see, because just certain parts of the training with where my knee is at, it like I had done some work and I went back to a couple classes to try it out, and it was like, oh yeah, it's like the exact pain, like restarting. But I was trying to because I haven't rode my bike regularly for like I was riding my bike a lot. Like I was up to like, I think I told you, like I did like Seattle to Portland ride, you know what I'm saying? Which is
I do remember
mile
that
bike ride and all that stuff. So I was, I wasn't out here. I wasn't getting what's your man's name? Did with the stuff.
Major Taylor.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm going on my Major Taylor. You know what I'm saying? I'm out here riding. So, and I was getting to what you said about trading. So I got an exercise bike in the crib that while I was waiting to get my bike, because my bike needed like a tune-ups but stuff, and it was waiting to get out on the road. So I'm spinning on that, and I'm doing this. And so Monday this week, I get my bike back, and I'm like, let me go for like a little ride. And I'm like, I am not in bicycle shape, like struggling up hills, and my feet with my clips ain't, you know what I mean? But then I said, well, let me make a plan, right? So over my other 2 days this week, I guess a little road with a loop where I could do, kind of like a loop interval and adjust how intense I ride. And I got, through good workouts in, but I needed to add to that for my own, stress and mental clarity. I have to do something that's anaerobic, like some lifting and something that, push-ups, but not just, but I need more than push-ups. So I had to weave all that in. And from a mental clarity perspective, it's kind of opened up, kind of calmed me down. You know what I'm saying? This last 2 weeks. Because I've been able to do the kind of exercise that I need to get the stress out of my body when I'm like pace it. That was my very long meandering way to add on what you and where you started with the Baraka piece of that where your thoughts, you know what I mean, can come to you and you can kind of like be, even if you're paying this, because even when I'm working out, I'm like kind of looking around. It's like, okay, but then you get moments where you just be thinking about what you're thinking, right? Like, and your body moving, and then you come back like, oh, is that a car? Okay, then you have that. You come back to that thought. Then I think long type exercises like running, like cycling, like even cross country skiing, something where you're going, 30, 40 minutes. I think those, and just walking. Why I've always been an advocate of just, take a 45-minute walk, man. Like, you get enough time that your brain, as I see it, can like, okay, I'm in rhythm. Hey, remember that thing you was thinking, and boop, 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 and it bubbles back out, right? And I always find, so like when you do your training or do your running, do you do anything like after? Do you ever like get back and write like any notes on how you're doing things, or like any way that you try to document, your headspace with your
well, I do. It's like a habit of mine, actually, and it's I always question myself about it. Like, yo, if my battery dies and I'm not able to log my run, am I going to stop the run? You know what I mean? Like if I'm running 6 miles, I want the whole 6 miles logged. That is like a ritual thing for me. But I even did it when I was in the gym, like doing weights. I always document it, the number of pull-ups I did, how many sets of whatever I did. So I do, that's one way that, the relationship of working out and technology is that I'm always on apps, trying to find what are the best types of stretches before or after a run, and as you were talking about cross country skiing, all these things, stretching in itself is something that I think that we need to engage in just to keep the body, fresh, and it's like a pre or a post thing, or, if I don't get a run in the day, all right, well, let me get a 20-minute stretch in. Me being a graduate student, I'm able to reap the benefits, one of the benefits of using Peloton, and able to participate in some of the classes that they have, and some of the 5-minute stretches. Man, just stretching and following them, it's a workout. So advocate. If we can get out there and get a half a mile run or a 45-minute walk, getting a 5-minute stretch, is very beneficial. It's beneficial to me, so that's another, another part of working on our body that has strong connective tissue to running, pun intended, with connective tissue.
Indeed. Well, I think it's, I'm very big on, now there's whole markets developed around it, like different like movement patterns. And, I think the guy has shared a couple things over the last years, but like where folks talk about like making sure you're able to get down in a squat, you know what I'm saying? Like certain movements. And I think that, because even something that I was very with even this last month, because I've been culminating up to this last like 2 weeks. I've been trying to put together the right package of regular activity for myself, because I went through over the last really like 8 years. I went through a phase where I was cycling pretty regularly in the summer, spring, summer, fall, and then I was lifting, and I was lifting like heavy, like I was working up to lift like deadlift for over 400 pounds and all kinds of stuff. And then I stopped, and I sort of meandered, and then I started doing capoeira because I wanted to get back into martial arts regularly. But within that, there's a place in there where I stopped doing some of the like stretching movement stuff the way I had been, and my own thought about even my knee pain is that because I stopped doing that stuff, the potentiality that was already there for pain or discomfort elevated. Like it came up because I wasn't doing the other movement stuff that I'm doing, like stretches and rolls and sitting on lacrosse balls and, you know what I'm saying, all kinds of things that you could do to keep your stuff limber. So, I say that to say, it's important to keep a personal discipline. You know what I mean? Sometimes once you know a modality that works for you, like, and you may stop for no particular good reason. It wasn't the pandemic yet. This was before the pandemic. But
if I could lean on a fairly new power-born adage, discipline works when motivation doesn't. So in the event that we're not motivated to get out there and run some miles, discipline, which is a mental thing, but like, all right, let me at least get out here and do 5 minutes of stretching, So that's something that I keep in mind regularly. One way of being accountable, keeping that quote in mind.
Dope. Well, I mean, I think it opens the door to my next turn of phrase. I mean, as you in the research that you're doing, with your doctoral work, like how has your experience been? I mean, I've known a couple different family members and friends, or like, I guess I could say acquaintances that have been in a doctoral program, and I know how much work it is. And it can be. How has that experience been, with your work, this year and these conditions and all of this, man? Like what?
Oh man, it's been it hasn't been the best, and I just can be, honest about that. It hasn't been the best because the pandemic has not allowed me to have access to books and periodicals that I had pre-pandemic, because I have about 80 different books on a library shelf in the Library of Congress. And I have, been collecting these books since I began my studies. So, there was this whole idea, like, me collecting these books and accessing them, then having to pivot to accessing electronic journals and familiarizing myself with new information. It may be the same topic, but now it's a different author, so that part has been kind of disheartening, but it is what it is in regards of being in the pandemic. That has allowed me to, be familiar with new information, but in regards of time, it's just been, it hasn't been the best. It hasn't been the best. I am able to utilize my resources though, regarding Howard University having library systems where you can use something called ProQuest, which gives you access to all these academic
journals.
Because Google Scholar, it's useful, but after a while, there's not too much. It has its limitations, So, like I said, pre-pandemic, I had all this wealth of information at the Library of Congress, and now, I'm just on this one computer with all these screens, like multiple screens, whereas if I did have 2, desktops, I would be able to get my work done. And, I'm real big on setting when I'm writing. Like I like to be in certain spaces. Like I haven't been at the coffee shops like I used to be. I'm going to get the expensive Ethiopian coffee that I drink, but, I'm going to go find a space where I can actually write. So that's where my part-time job at Trinity University has been beneficial, because after I get done teaching my courses, which are virtually, which were hybrid at first, that's a whole nother story. But when I get done teaching there, I'm able to utilize the campus and, go to my little office and get some writing done. But yeah, the lack of resources regarding tangible resources and the space issue with writing, the location, all of that was kind of like, I didn't expect that when I first decided to do this program, So,
so I mean, there's anything you shared about the Library of Congress, and I'm one of the things I like most about I like libraries. I like all libraries. I think libraries are awesome. They're places that make me happy. But I think one of the most invaluable or valuable, valuable, I think it's right usage, on a college campus and is a library, and a real research library, like where you can get journals, you can get, the extensive, writings, the subject matter that you might not find, at your county, your county branch.
Yeah.
And
it's a whole different level of intimacy.
Yeah. And I don't think, like, when I hear people kind of, for whatever reason, kind of poo-pooing the college experience, one thing I always think, like, have you ever been in a college library, man? There's so much stuff in there. Like, if you want to go read on a topic, right? Now, not that reading is the end all be all of information, but to me, it is, especially in this society, it is a foundational piece of how ideas get codified, then how they get given, a sense of legitimacy. There's also, and this is something that where I sort of empathize with you, if you're trying to put together pieces of data and not having be able to, like, to look at the physical book, you know what I'm saying, that somebody printed, with a concept, or look at the journal and, like, turn the pages and, like, put arrows next to stuff and, like, sort of think about it, like, because I struggle with, like, they're like, oh, well, you can do this, you can annotate in an iPad, and I'm like, yeah, but then I gotta get the iPad and I gotta, like, put it in the iPad and I gotta do this. If I just had a printout, I could do my little notes here, then I could type, whatever I'm gonna type, or my thought, in the other document where I'm maybe doing whatever I'm writing about. So I was thinking about, and I was thinking about you with, like, working on, putting together, and I don't know where you're at in the phase or the steps in your doctorate, your dissertation. Are you at the dissertation phase now? Or
I am. I'm actually going to be proposing soon. I have about 55 to 60 pages, complete. And the thing about it, which is, like, it's a real small technical challenges. If you have a 60-page document and you got one screen, there's a lot of, like, scrolling, and even if you break up the chapters, my first chapter, which may be about 30 something pages, you're still scrolling. So having the technology where you can see everything is very useful. So if the university was open and I could use Howard University's iLab, it would be a lot more beneficial with me having my laptop there and these huge screens that they have. So yeah, but overall, it's still an amazing process of just uncovering knowledge and making meaning of knowledge, being that I have a passion about the content that I am researching, and I am, unpacking all these different things about higher education. So that part is it's amazing. It's reaffirming in regards of the direction that I want to do, in regards to just being an academic. Like, it's very similar to, like, the feeling I get when I'm running. Like, there's a positive charge that has taken place after I have, come to a conjecture about a certain topic. I'm just, as I got that positive charges, I got to the 3rd mile, and I'm like, all right, boom, I got 2 more miles to run. So those things have been rewarding as I, take a look at it from that lens.
What would be something that, if you could fast track it to get access to it again in these conditions, what would be something you would be like, man, if we could just get a little more energy around that you think would be a big help for you to, to have that, like, what would be the one or two things you're like, man, if we could fast track a way to make that accessible to me, like what would it be? What would be something that would really help you to get, some of that access or tool space that you need?
Well, I'm one of those educators, like, I could be at a hotel. I'm like, yo, y'all got teacher discounts? Let me show you my educator card. I'm not educator. I'm not educator, So to answer your question, like, I don't know if the Library of Congress has, put out surveys to, individuals who are main readers, meaning there's a space in the Library of Congress where there's the main reading room. And if you have that card, you can go and access that room. But if you can't get in the building, it doesn't matter anyway. Right. So I think that I guess this is going back to what I said before. There's no real change left this policy. But if they could draft a policy or, some type of rules and regulations where individuals who have devoted some time in this particular space are able to access it. Because again, it was about the space as well. Like when I would go into the Library of Congress, you got a little section where you write at, I look up, boom, this James Lowen, who is the author of Lies My Teacher Told Me. He's about 3 hours up from where I'm doing my work. One time I was in there, Bill Gates walked in. He walked in and walked out. He probably said, I don't need anything. I'll buy everything in here. But, but he walked in. My word is bond. I'm sitting there doing my work. I look up, I see Bill Gates. $5.
Right. Your bell, let me hold sign.
Yeah, he walked in. I looked, I was like, wow, and he walked back out. But there's just this, there's just a certain type of capital of being in these spaces of learning where, I can go and retrieve books and, ask someone who's a library specialist about particular things, but that part, there's been a divorce regarding my research, so, and I feel for, graduate students whose research was with, involved a laboratory that they can't access no more. So yeah, that part could really benefit those who are trying to further civilization regarding knowledge and research.
Indeed. Yeah. So so I don't want to hold you into the wee hours, but we and you have talked a lot about writing, but also writing in the context of like poetry and prose and stories and like what, if anything, man, what is there anything on your list or on your mind that we as in me would be an interesting challenge maybe to partake in, to gain some understanding from this last year in a writing context? There's something that we could maybe be thinking about doing.
Oh man,
that could be beneficial to people.
Yeah, I read so many academic articles, listen to so many different scholarly talks. It's kind of made me realize how much I've missed fiction. It's made me realize how much plays have been a part of my life. I always go to plays. I haven't been to a play. Those things really excite me. Those are certain things. Those are certain mediums to be a storyteller that I really would like to engage in. In fact, the one place I have visited a lot during the pandemic has been an herb shop. It's called Blue Nile Botanicals. Different type of herbs. They have, chamomile. They have damiana. They have peppermint. All the different types of herbs you want. Sea moss. You like particular soaps. They have everything. But when I go there, it's a small little space. Every time I'm in there, I'm like, yo, this is a setting of a play. because it's ran by two black men. Actually, it's owned by one black male, but there's two brothers who are always there. But when you're in there, you're waiting in line. There can be Christians in there. There can be Muslims in there. There could be 5%ers in there. There could be um, Sikhs in there. A wide range of people. But everyone's there in order to get health products, and there's always something that's very noteworthy when you go in there. And when I leave there, I'm like, yo, man, I wish I could write a play about the things, the interactions that take place in this little botanical shop called Blue Now. So anyways, I say that to say writing a play is something that is really of interest to me. Yes, I'm a huge August Wilson fan. That part of my life in high school, there were some interweavings of August Wilson into curriculums, in regards to being culturally responsive. But playwriting is something that really is something I want to do. I think that post-pandemic, when people are out and about, there's going to be the movies, of course, but I think that it would be a fine time for play going to be a part of people activity and to see theatrics take place to convey a story of meaning, So that's something that you and I could really dialogue about and then hear your interests, and we can just be thought partners about how our interest in writing in 5-panel hats.
Yes, I see you. I see what you're doing there. I didn't want. I was going. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I didn't want to blow your head up too much.
Yeah.
I want you to. You know what I mean. But I see you.
For the listening audience, I'm currently wearing a 5-panel hat that's made out of mud cloth. Justice Rajee and I, we have based off his leadership, have held 5-panel hats very near and dear to us.
Indeed.
So but yeah, man, we can definitely pick a time to really come up with some ideas and utilizing that language we used before, come up with some structure and bring something to reality regarding even the short stories, but the idea of just being storytellers.
Sure. All right. Well, I'm gonna hold that, and I'm gonna hold myself accountable to share, a couple things with you that I got in the stash. You know what I mean, to get some input, and maybe it'd be something that'll bring some a moment of relief or relaxation from the heavy work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the joys of reading some fiction is giving you some space between the world, for a second. And even if I mean, I know some people, even if the subject matter is not necessarily like, oh, it's like a fantasy story, like maybe it is, but just something where you can get engrossed in this story. It's not the same as watching a movie or watching a TV show.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. And on the 5-panel hat things, and now that I done let my hair grow back, I gotta do some I gotta get some big. I got a big head, you know what I mean. And then when I get hair, I gotta get bigger hats. So I'm on the prowl this summer, you know what I mean, for some new hats. So I might be reaching out to you. And the other thing I wanted to share with you that I did, because and I don't know if we're gonna be able to get all the way to it. I might want to have as I like to call it, think of you the three patron leaders of fly fashion wear, yourself, Niles Divine, and Jessica.
Oh, thank you, brother.
You know what I'm saying? Because I
you.
went through just actually today, because I was like, I got suits, so I'm like, I need to sort out stuff, because the stuff in here I don't really like wearing no more. I'll never wear it, or I don't know if it fits right. So I went on every sport coat that I have, every suit that I have, which is not all that many for the listeners' sake. I mean, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but you know what I'm saying? So I could tune myself, because two things I'm going to take my son, Freedom, to get his first grown man suit. You know what I'm saying? Sometime in the next couple of weeks, because he doesn't he's got some pieces and parts, but since he's sort of achieved the you're more or less going to be this size, unless you start getting extra brolic in the gym. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be around this size as an adult.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So get him, an appropriate, you know what I'm saying? So he can, when he need one, he could show up the way he need to show up. And I was like, well, damn, what do I got in my closet? Do I need some of this stuff or some of this stuff? You got something to like, man, this is, I got a suit that's like this shit, shoot, it's older than the kids. I think it's old, at least it's older than Freedom. And when I gotta ask myself, am I ever gonna wear that suit again? And maybe I am, maybe I won't. You know what I mean? But if you don't put it on the check, you know what I mean? And it's sort of the idea you don't really know what you got sometimes, so you take inventory. You know what I mean? So like one in more ways than one, but you know what I mean, you gotta go and go like, well, let me actually look at what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And so it's just I would say something that's coming out of this pandemic year for me is taking inventory of the things that I keep around and what things I decide, either should be shared or should be replaced. You know what I'm saying? And, part of that is with clothes. And another phase of that is with books, which you can't see, but over here to the left, my books is all still in boxes. I have bookshelves in here yet. But, all part of me is like, do I need to have all of these books? Some of these books might be able to be best to share with somebody. You know what I mean?
Right. I just want to take a meaningful pause when you say, do I need these books? Even with the whole suits thing, like you said, do I need these suits? Like, what is and this is an enduring question. We can conclude, but we can just put a pin in this. But what is the role of suits doing virtual engagement? Like, even like, with, I don't know if you've been following like the stock wars, like with, Reddit and then versus the suits. Like the suits kind of like represents like, these older gentlemen,
like
and as
Wall Street types.
Yeah. But now like we're virtual learning, like, what is the suit companies even going to, because I've had this extensive relationship with Brooks Brothers as an ambassador and an associate, but it's like they've closed down, so as we move forward with this post-pandemic, what is the existence of the suit going? What's going to happen? We could put a pin in that, but it's just a thought,
Yeah, well, I would say, and I'd like to return to think about, because that's part of what I was processing even with clothes. I'm like, there's a part of me that, well, put it like this, right? There's sometimes when I know I got meetings and things, and it's like, there's days where I'm like, man, I don't know if I should wear it. I feel like I need something with a little more structure than a t-shirt. I mean, just,
right.
I mean, with how I'm looking on this camera and trying to think, am I being perceived in a way like I've just to give you a sense, for me, what I've even had to do to be effective in my work, I've had to actually add a day where I go to our office, because I usually have to go to like take packages and things back and forth, because logistics of movement of how we get stuff to clients. But I was like, I need some separation from my house.
Oh, right.
Like, and not just like mentally, physically. I need the meditative reality that like I am not in my house. I'm in this other place where I go do work for a little bit of time. And I think sometimes with clothing and attire, there is something to, I need to shift how I see myself in this situation. Now, I don't know if the suit has to, I think the suit has earned a deeper, longer conversation, but I think some contemplative thought about like, what does it, I mean, one, you can't, there's people who say that the people, friend of mine say they got, I actually will be in, Jessica thought about the mullet outfit where you got a business up top and a party below. Like we can't tell that you got, and some people can do that. They can put on like a shirt with a collar and tuck it into their sweatpants and feel totally comfortable. But I feel like I'm lying. So if I put on the tie and the shirt, I got to put the pants on. Like,
right.
I can't be in here with, you know what I'm saying? I found these great yoga, I got some pants from the outlet store. That these Prana like yoga rock climbing pants. They're fantastic.
I got a couple,
fantastically comfortable and great for training and exercise. I can't. I can wear them with a half zip sweater and feel fine. If I tried to put on a button down shirt and I would feel like I'm lying to everybody. You know what I'm saying? It's very weird. I'm trying to figure it out, quite frankly.
Right.
But I think it's one of them things as a just something I think that'd be very interesting to come back to is like, what does it mean to show up in person? And what are the things that you should bring with you, when this time, when we can be in person more often? You know what I mean? What does, and then with that, there is, there still is a place for suits. I mean, there's some people, there's Flash Mob brothers in Atlanta that they go out and everybody got the suits on. Brothers got the suits on. Like,
oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's that's, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out, guys. I think we should come back to it.
Yeah, we should. Like I said, we got to put a pin in that.
Yeah. Word. So, well, one, let me say and let me express my profound thank you for coming and sharing, and add on, to our engagement. I really appreciate it. I am going to encourage folks, is there anything that you just want to say, for the good of the order, or share with people before I wrap us up? Until the next time we meet.
Yeah, I probably want to say, do not let school interfere with education, and health is wealth.
Indeed. So with that, I'll say peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Ask Your Oldhead Podcast with Justice Rajee. Thank you to my guest, Divine Culture. You can find out more or follow up on our conversation by, sharing this podcast. You can check the show notes. There may be some links to some of the things and matters we discussed. We'll see. For everybody out there that is, struggling with the education system, either as a parent, as a participant, as a provider or service, as a teacher, as a classified staff, what have you, I wish you the best, and hopefully something within our conversation was useful or helpful or, I don't know, positive in some way. You can support the podcast itself by sharing, by rating, subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Also by becoming a patron on Patreon. For a small monthly contribution, you help me offset the cost that it costs me to put this all together and to keep being creative in this space. As one is able to travel more, I will be hope to add more, more images, more pictures, of my guests and of the subject matter that we cover when we come together. In all things, as always, be safe, be wise, and take the best part for yourself. Thank you for listening again. Peace.